into you. And feel her flowing through you as you inhale. And that prana flows through all of the different parts of your body, touching and awakening the cells of your body. Feel Mother Ganga's waters flowing into and through you. Feel that flow of the Divine Mother. That flow of the waters of liberation, the waters of freedom. Feel them flowing through you, and as they do, allow those waters to loosen and free all of the stuff that's stuck to you on the inside. The false identities, anger and grudges, attachments and expectations, illusions. All of the stories that you tell yourself about yourself. Just feel those sacred waters flowing through you and loosening all of that junk from inside you. And feel yourself letting go into her waters. Let her free you. Let her flow through, cleansing and purifying. And as you exhale, just allow yourself to let go more and more into her waters. Whatever it is you're holding on to, or that seems to be holding on to you, just offer it. Offer it into her flowing waters. Offer it into that river, the river of grace. The river of freedom. The river of love. Offer into her as you exhale. And feel Ma Ganga carrying it all out into her waters and all the way out into the ocean, freeing you, cleansing you on the inside, making room for the flow of grace. Slowly and gently, bring the palms of your hands together at chest level in Namaste. And just gently rub the palms of your hands against each other. Press the palms of your hands into your closed eyes. Slowly lower the hands and open your eyes. Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. So beautiful to be back together. I was optimistic when I left, saying that we would be able to gather for Satsang tonight, but of course, you're always at the mercy of flights and timings and traffic and jams and whatnot on the roads and airports. But thankfully everything worked out beautifully tonight, and I had the blessing of not only being able to be with you in Satsang, but actually being able to reach for the end of Arati. So happy to be back with you all. So, starting as we always do with a question that's come in from our online audience. We'll then open it up to any questions that anyone here has. There's 2 microphones here, so if you have a question, just go to the microphone closest to you, and our sweet Rishikumars will help you get it adjusted and turned on and whatever. Why is life so hard? This was asked by Dr. Tabriz on Instagram. Why is life so hard? So, Pujya Swamiji, my guru, shares a very, very beautiful teaching that was gifted to him when he was a young child living in the jungles and the forests and caves and little temples. And it was a teaching given to him, of course, in Hindi. So I'll give it to you in Hindi because it actually rhymes very nicely in Hindi. So for those of you who speak Hindi, you will appreciate the rhyming nature of it. But then for those of you who don't speak Hindi, I'll give you the English. So the Hindi says, Bolo Jivan Kaisa hai, Jaisa Banalo Vaisa hai. Chahe isko swarg banalo, chahe isko narak banalo. Bolo Jivan Kaisa hai, Jaisa Banalo Vaisa hai. And it means, what is life? Life is what we make it. Whether you turn your life to heaven or you turn your life to hell, life is what you make it. So, why is life so hard? Well, it's interesting because if you look specifically at this teaching, it was given to him by another master, a renunciant monk living in the jungles, in the forest, in a cave. Nobody to cook for him. No room service, no minibar, no delivery service of any kind, no shopping centers, no restaurants, nothing. Someone who had access to nothing. Not a car, not a motorcycle, not even a bicycle. Someone who may not have even had access to shoes. Traditionally, they walk barefoot. When Pujya Swamiji was young, he and his guru would walk all day, morning till evening, barefoot. So imagine, to us, if you say, what are the difficulties of life? Well, most of the time, it's not getting what we want. Now, what do most of us want? Well, on a material level, we'd like a nice house, we'd like, a good car, we'd like some money in the bank. Others have bigger aspirations, many different houses, vacation houses, several cars, boats, airplanes, whatever your aspiration may be. Most of us would certainly say that at least a pair of shoes counted as a necessity for a good life. But this teaching is so powerful because it was given by one who literally had nothing and that too by choice. And from the teaching, what we realize is that pretty much all of that we think is what makes our life so difficult. I got fired from my job. I don't have this, I don't have that. This happened, that happened. And I'm not minimizing at all the challenges that we face. But you have to realize that challenges are challenges because of the goals we have given. If I've decided that my goal is to be able to run a 100-meter dash, and I break my leg, or worse, lose the use of it. Well, that's a huge challenge. That's a major difficulty. If my goal is forget the race, my goal is to walk at all, and I no longer have use of my leg, major trouble, major difficulty, major challenge. And there's extraordinary stories of people who have lost the use of not only one leg, but both of their legs. Maybe both of their legs and both of their arms. And who have achieved incredible feats. Not the least of which being to lead inspiring lives that actually bring hope and inspiration and teaching to others. That make those of us with access to all of our limbs feel like, oh my God, why couldn't I be as gifted as this person? So life is hard because of what we have set as our goals. Now that doesn't mean don't have goals. Have them by all means. But just recognize when difficulties arise. Actually, what is the underlying thing? I'll tell you a personal story about this. When I had spent my first 3 months in Rishikesh, and I won't go into my whole story here, many of you know it, but when I first came and I knew that this is where I was meant to be, I was here for 3.5 months. It was one semester I had taken off of my PhD program. And then when Pujya Swamiji sent me back, I knew that the last thing I wanted to do was get into another 1-year lease. It's like, there is no way I'm staying here another year. Like, I'm going to finish this semester that he's made me do, and then I'm back in India. So I got a place that was on a month-to-month lease. It was, I don't know, 1 mile, 2 miles from where I was living before. And I called Pujya Swamiji one night in the midst of moving. And I was exhausted, frustrated, exasperated. And I said to him, oh my God, it's such a hassle, and the moving guys and the boxes and this and that. And I was just, unloading like you do when you've had what in your mind was a very difficult day. And he says to me, so how far away is the new place from the old place? I said, I don't know, a mile, 2 miles. He said, well, that's like a 20-minute, half an hour walk. He said, what's the problem? And I said, oh my God, the boxes and the vans and the moving people. And he said, oh, it's the stuff. And I realized, it's the stuff. And he said, because if you didn't have any stuff, it's a half-hour walk. And he said, so either get rid of the stuff, if that's the problem, or be grateful that you have the stuff and stop thinking about it as a problem. And it shifted my thought process so deeply. Because even though moving from one apartment to another apartment in the scheme of life's challenges is way, way, way at the bottom of the totem pole, kind of even beneath the surface, but this is really true for so many of the problems we face. It's actually the stuff, and whether it's physical material stuff or whether it's mind stuff. I wanted it a different way. It should have been a different way. This isn't the right way. This isn't fair. It's stuff of the mind. And so when we are able to either let go of the stuff, or we are able to simply acknowledge, okay, that is the stuff of my mind. And yes, I'm working on it in my meditation. I'm working on it in my practice. But until then, I acknowledge it is there. It is mind stuff. But I'm not going to let myself convince myself that life is anything other than a gift, an opportunity, a blessing, just because of either the stuff in my boxes or the stuff in my mind. So that which makes life hard is stuff. And wherever it may be, in the mind, in the heart, in the emotions, in the closets, in the relationships, either we let it go, or we simply acknowledge it for what it is. But we don't allow it to change how we think and feel about this great blessing that we've been given. So thank you to Dr. Tabriz for this beautiful question. Other questions that anyone has? Yeah. Yeah, he seems to... Kya Wabia? He says it's on.
Hello?
Not working. No problem. We can hear you.
This might be related to that. I've been nursing this question since the last time I was here. Different topic, but I think it might be the same. When I was quite young, I went deep into knuckle consciousness after horsing around and then really scraping my hand very strongly on a bit of metal, taking it right down to the joint capsule, and it was, as far as I was concerned at that time, the worst pain I had ever experienced. And intuitively, it was something different that had come up, and it felt like I had two choices. I could ignore the pain, be a man, or I could really go inside the pain and feel it. And I thought, well, I've never really gone inside pain. And when I did, it went away.
Yes.
And I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I stayed there for 2 or 3 minutes, and I thought, it should be okay now. And when I came out of the pain, it was 5 times worse. And I was floored, and I said, I will never, ever do that again. And so I think I may have done it once or twice. The result was the same. And I have found that, for me, the best way to manage most pain, and I was a carpenter in my early 20s, and I injured my hands many, many times, and I had fractures, and I just learned to step back and notice and sort of witness the pain and say, that's okay. And I became a chiropractor, and I became very familiar with how many other people manage pain. But when I left here the last time, I tripped and stumbled and tore off a lot of skin from my thumb, and it was extremely intense. And I said, okay, I'll wash the pain. And then I looked at it, and something exploded in my mind, or just it felt like a diffraction of the pain, almost like a diffraction of light into many colors. And I can see many aspects of the pain. And I can see just the physical part of it, and the emotions were in about 5 different layers. Mm-hmm. And when I was looking at the emotions, it made me realize that there isn't a moment in life. As much as I can go to bliss and I can bring it up at any time, I became aware of that almost every single moment, no matter what my mood is, I know there's this deep pain. Mm-hmm. And it's not as if, it's like an existential pain, not like, oh my God, I'm suffering, this is terrible. But it's like, oh, mm-hmm. No one talks about that. It's like almost everything that you might say here or you read in the books is, oh, life is bliss, be aware of that.
Well, the entire Buddhist tradition is based on the very core premise. I mean, the Buddha's kind of number one core teaching is life is suffering.
Yeah.
So it's not that we say life is bliss. We say life is a gift. Life is a blessing. Life is an opportunity. In order to, you're absolutely right, at the core, I use the word suffering instead of pain. It is just a semantic choice. To me, pain, I use it to refer to the physical aspect. We have pain receptors in our brains, in our bodies. When you touch a hot stove, whether you are enlightened, whether you've never meditated a day in your life and you're living in illusion, either way, your hand intuitively is going to pull back, thankfully, because of the pain receptors that actually function faster than the thinking mind, which is great because then we don't have to say, oh, this hurts. Okay, let me get my hand off the hot stove. By the time you realize your hand is burning, you've removed it. To me, that's pain. The knuckles, the breaks, everything that happens physically, this is pain. Suffering is what, in the Buddhist tradition, they refer to as the second arrow. So you fall, you hurt yourself, there is pain, and then the mind comes in and says, oh my God, I can't believe it, this is so unfair. Happens to me all the time. Or, oh my God, now my vacation is ruined. I'm not going to be able to do this. Or, that was my pitching hand, or my writing hand, or my driving hand. That's where the suffering comes in. So the Buddhists refer to it as the first arrow being that which actually hits you. It hurts. I've never, thankfully, been struck with an arrow from a bow, but I imagine it must hurt a lot. The mind then comes in. That's the second arrow, which is suffering. Now, you're absolutely right. At the core is suffering. And beneath the suffering, through the suffering, and it has to be through, you cannot go around it, which is why spiritual bypasses don't work. It's why none of the substances that people use for spiritual experiences are able to work in a long-term, sustained way. They may be fantastic at giving you a glimpse of what is there, but then you gotta get there. I think of kind of our experience of joy or pain or suffering in layers. You think we've got the most outermost layer, which for most of us is happiness. That's the kind of happy face that we put on, the mask that we wear. The, oh, please, please, please like me, please like me. I hope you all like me, please like me. Beneath that is suffering. For some people, on top of the happy mask is the I'm a grump, I'm a grouch. That may be their mask. But either way, beneath that superficial level, there is suffering, deep suffering. It's the human condition. It is there because of Maya, illusion. It is there because of the identification as physical body, not just the actual bearer of the muscles and the joints and the arms and the things that kept getting fractured, but all of the stories that go along with it. What I've gained, what I've lost, where I've been hurt, where I've been betrayed, where I didn't get what I needed. And for a lot of us, it goes back to early childhood. I know people for whom it goes back to birth trauma. There are people who are accessing past lives, and it's coming from there. But all of that, whether I'm identified as a previous body that my soul took, whether it's me coming out of the womb, whether it's me in early life, whether it's me yesterday, it's all associated with the story of the physical body. And as long as I identify with that as me, there is suffering. But that core suffering is the ignorance because that isn't who you are. And that's where through the suffering, because again, just for anybody who missed it, you've got to go through it. It's why just the kind of superficial level, wishy-washy, bypassy stuff doesn't work. Because all it is you sort of pretending the suffering isn't there. You got to go through it. Beneath it, through it, is actually that Sat Chit Anand. Truth, consciousness, and wait for it, bliss. Which is not a quality of the emotional psychological self. So when I speak about us living life as a gift, I didn't use the word bliss Because it's not actually a quality of the conditioned self. I mean, you may have blissful moments. Oh my God, that was so great. I was in total bliss. But it's not a sustainable quality of the psyche of the conditioned self. But it is the permanent and eternal quality of soul, spirit, consciousness, Brahman, what we call Sat, Chit, Anand. And that's actually the truth of who you are. Truth, consciousness, bliss. Not bliss because there isn't suffering in this body, in this karmic journey, in this story, in this narrative. But because you are able to touch the truth of the self, the capital S self, that isn't that. So, yes, at the core is suffering. If we're looking only at the human experience. But if we're able to get into the experience of spirit in human body, consciousness in the Jiva Atma, the individual soul that is undergoing a karmic journey, then no, there's actually something beneath that suffering. And that's what we're here for. It's what we're here to experience. But yeah, you've got to touch the suffering first. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. So my whole life I've been a musician. That was actually the first thing I ever wanted to do. And then I went to college and I studied music there, and I actually found a passion for entertainment law, which is an industry that is very cutthroat, and I've learned that in order to make a good living, I have to be on the side of the bigger companies that usually take advantage of the artist, which is me. So I've kind of come to this point where I want to do the right thing and defend the smaller person, but at the same time, I'm obviously chasing a career where I can make money and like provide for myself and give myself my ideal life. So I just wanted to know, I guess, what advice you would give for finding a balance between like giving myself what I need for my soul, but also giving myself what I need in this life.
What is your name?
Isha.
Isha. Isha, do not, under any circumstance, sell yourself short. Do not create a situation in which, under the guise of thinking that you need to do this, that your actions, your time, your energy, your abilities, your resources are being used for something that is in the exact opposite of what your heart and your soul know. You may not be a multimillionaire. One of the absolute truths of our commercial world is that in general, not all the time by any means, but in general, those who get very high are those for whom making a lot of money is the highest goal. Because they have to be prepared to sacrifice almost every other goal for it. Whether it's family, whether it's spiritual practice, whether it's values, ethics, morals, their call of their soul, whatever it may be. And again, this isn't true of every single one of them, but it's most definitely generally true. But what I can tell you from 53 years of experience is that I've never met a person who was happy that they sold their soul. I've never met anyone who said, well, at least I got this great car. But what I've met are lots of people who followed what they knew to be true. And in some cases, miraculously, look at that, they found themselves incredibly financially successful. And in other cases, they didn't. But what they found was that at the end of the day, they could sleep at night. That they didn't have acidity. That they actually were happy in their lives because their beliefs, their thoughts, their values, their ethics, and their actions are in alignment. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive dissonance. And what cognitive dissonance says that our beliefs, our thoughts, and our actions have to be in harmony for us to be happy. And when they're not, when there's dissonance between them, typically we try to change our actions first, but if we can't, we change our thoughts. So for example, somebody who smokes knows that smoking is bad for them. They try to quit, they keep trying to change their actions. When they find that they can't quit, suddenly they decide, it's not actually so bad. My friend's grandmother was 93 years old and smoked 2 packs a day until she died. They've got to do that. Because having a thought that runs completely contrary to my belief creates so much dissonance inside of me that I can't live happily. My concern for you, Isha, is if you don't change your actions, if you don't make sure that your actions are in alignment with what you know to be true, eventually you're going to change your thoughts. And what that means is that you're going to end up giving up on some level your identification with the creatives, with the artists, and you're going to realign yourself in your allegiance with those who are taking advantage of them. And not only is that violence to your values, but it's violence to your gifts. You will never go hungry. We will always feed you. Should you find yourself in any difficult situation, you are always welcome here. But what I can really tell you I've seen is the world takes care of people who are doing good work. And yeah, you may not be on the Forbes list of the richest, women in India this year. But you're going to have a wealth that far surpasses that. And you're going to have a community of artists, of creatives. That's going to be your other wealth. Is if you are selling them out, there goes your community. Try explaining to them, well, yeah, I just need to kind of work for this company that I know is, harming us because I've got to take care of myself financially. People who have dedicated themselves to art and creativity, they're not going to say, oh, don't worry about it, Isha, That community of people is going to be a beautiful treasure for you. Do not sell yourself short. Work for a company or create a company that is doing justice for the artists, for the creatives. People will come to you. Because ultimately people want to be represented by someone who actually has their best interest at heart. And at the end of the day, the peace that you will have will make it all worthwhile. Okay? Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes. Come, last question for tonight.
Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste.
Actually, I am very simple-headed and dull-witted, है ना? So I find life very miserable and very difficult, and constantly worried about my family and life. So that is taking quite a lot of toll of my life. So I want some guidance about that. And even I believe that my suffering will go with next birth. My suffering, but in this birth, my suffering are not going to end. I have to suffer this birth. That's what I would say. Thank you.
Were you here when we just spoke about pain and suffering? Were you here about 10, 15 minutes ago when we were talking about pain and suffering? No problem, no problem. We just spoke about that in the beginning. One of our beautiful sevaks can help you so that you can locate that, because I think that conversation we just had will be really beneficial for you. But in short, what I would say is you are not here to suffer. Your suffering will continue into your next life only if you don't free yourself of it in this life. Ask yourself what is the cause of your suffering and allow yourself to be free. There's a beautiful teaching that says in the scriptures, that says, Man eva manushyanam karinam bandha mokshaya. And it means the mind is the key to your bondage or the key to your freedom. If in your mind, until and unless my wife, my kids, my parents, my in-laws, my boss, my employees don't do what I want, I'm going to be miserable. Then yeah, you're going to be miserable. This life and next life. Nobody's ever going to do what you want.
Yes, ma'am.
Really, I mean, the sooner that we recognize that, the sooner we free ourselves. Sometimes what you want coincides and overlaps with what someone is doing. That is a beautiful serendipity and a blessing. Do not expect that people are going to do what you want and then you will be happy. You are setting yourself up for failure and misery. The question you need to ask yourself is, people are going to do what they are doing. It is their karmic package. It is their karmic journey. Now I have a choice. Am I going to be happy or am I going to be miserable? That's your only choice. So your suffering is up to you. You want to suffer the rest of this life? No problem. You want to carry it into next life? No problem. You want to carry it into the life beyond that? No problem. As long as you are attached to people's actions and words and choices and decisions, matching what you want, your destiny is written as miserable. You are absolutely right. But the moment that you recognize, my happiness, my joy, my peace, that is in my hands, not in their hands. It's in my hands. ठीक है, जो कर रहे करेंगे, करते रहेंगे. अब आपको देखना है. Are you going to keep fighting against it? Beating your head into a wall? If you do, you're going to have pain. But you need to say, can I, in this situation, with this type of spouse, these types of children, these types of in-laws? Can I find peace? Not because of them. I'm not saying that you have to suddenly start liking what everybody does. But can you recognize that your peace can actually exist independent of what they are doing? You can still disapprove of it, you can still not like it, you can still wish it were different. While you recognize that your peace and your happiness can exist simultaneously and independently. And that's your choice.
Yes, thank you.
Beautiful. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, everyone. As you may have noticed tonight, as the sun sets, get a little bit later, the Ganga Aarti is beginning a little bit later each evening, meaning it's ending a little bit later each evening. Tonight was significantly later, but we were usually starting at 5:30. These days we're starting more around 5:45 or so, which means that probably rather than us being able to start at 6:30, it's probably more likely it's going to be 6:45, even 6:50 before we actually start. So they'll have the garden open from 6:30. Feel free to come in and meditate. But just so that as you're planning your evening, for anyone who doesn't come straight from the Aarti, to just know that. I do, of course, hope that most of you attend the beautiful Ganga Aarti before this. And then, of course, you'll know exactly when it ends and exactly when we're going to start. But for anyone who comes separately. And so much love to you. By God's grace, I'm now going to be here and not traveling for a while. So we'll go back to having satsang each evening.